In the 1970s, a young man with a disarming smile and a carefully constructed lie told authorities a story that would stretch across state lines and puzzle investigators for years. This is the chilling case of Ted Bundy, a study in charm, deception, and the fragile limits of early forensic science. The story explores what the evidence revealed and how investigators continued the search for truth, even when the trail appeared to grow cold. To understand how Bundy was finally caught, we first need to look at where it all began and how patterns slowly took shape. Bundy's crimes spanned several states, including Washington, Utah, Colorado, and Florida. Beginning in the mid 1970s, his victims were often young women who vanished while going about everyday life, heading to class, walking home, or running a simple errand. Two chilling consistencies stood out: his calculated method of luring victims with charm or deception, and his ability to blend seamlessly into ordinary settings: a student, a volunteer, just another face in the crowd. Law enforcement faced an uphill battle, with cases spread across different states. Early disappearances were often treated as isolated incidents, delaying the realization that a single disturbing thread tied them all together. And as the disappearances continued, investigators began noticing troubling similarities, details that pointed to one man moving undetected across state lines. What eventually linked the cases were patterns in method, in victim profile, and even in the vehicle witnesses described. Long before DNA testing and modern forensic tools, investigators had to rely on noticing these troubling similarities. Progress often came from everyday observations: a witness remembering a distinctive car, a passerby noticing a repetitive routine, or composite sketches connecting different incidents. But the forensic tools of 1970s, fingerprinting, fiber analysis, and especially bite mark comparisons were limited and often debated. In fact, the bite mark evidence used in Bundy's Florida trial remains one of the most controversial pieces of forensic science discussed even today. Even with these limitations, small breaks began to add up, but Bundy wasn't done. In fact, his boldest and most reckless moves were still ahead. Bundy's growing overconfidence eventually led to his capture. After escaping custody twice in Colorado, he fled to Florida, where his reckless choices drew attention. He was arrested in 1978 in Pensacola after being stopped in a stolen car, ending a spree that had terrorized communities for years. The investigation had been complicated by false leads, intense media coverage, and the sheer scope of his crimes. But two things turned the tide: increasing public awareness, which pressurized agencies to share information, and Bundy's own mistakes, which finally gave authorities the openings they needed. What began as scattered local investigation ultimately evolved into a nationwide pursuit that gripped both law enforcement and the public. The courtroom became a stage where years of investigation were laid out. In 1979, Bundy was convicted of the Chi Omega sorority murders in Florida, largely on eyewitness testimony and bite mark evidence. Later that year, he was also convicted and sentenced to death for the abduction and murder of 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. These trials mark one of the first times Americans saw a case of this scale broadcast in such detail. The verdicts reflected a collective call for justice, but they also highlighted the challenges of handling multi-state investigations. The Bundy's case serves as a reminder that true crime stories are not only about the criminal, they are about investigators working tirelessly with limited tools, about the evolution of forensic science, and most importantly, about the lives affected by violence. It also raises an important caution for anyone retelling these events. The stories should never glamorize terror or tragedy, but instead highlight resilience, justice, and the lessons learned for protecting others in the future. And that brings us to the bigger picture: what Bundy's case continues to teach us today. The story is larger than one man's crime. is about how investigators piece together evidence across borders, how forensic science has advanced, and how justice continues to honor the memory of victims. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And if you notice anything that needs correcting or have thoughts to add, please leave a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.